I've been asked before if I could only have one camera, which camera would that be? And my answer is the Ricoh GR, specifically the original APS-C version from 2013. I just replaced my plain black GR with this beautiful limited edition green GR. So I figured it was the perfect time to tell you why this is my island camera. Now, 2013 may seem like a really long time ago, especially in camera years, but I would argue that this era of 16 megapixel sensors are still incredible today. And while I do love using older digital cameras, I acknowledge that they sometimes have limitations, especially when it comes to high ISO, noise performance, dynamic range, and depending what you're doing and how low your megapixel count is. I have some 1 megapixel cameras back there. They have limited cropping power. But in this era of sensors, I don't feel limited in any way. Sure, modern sensors do have more dynamic range and more cropping power with higher megapixel counts, better high ISO noise performance, but in all but extreme scenarios like wildlife photography before dawn, this is more than capable for what you need. So the sensor of this camera is plenty capable, but what really makes the Ricoh GR special is its compact size and incredible lens. When I first picked up this camera back in 2019, I was really skeptical that it would be any better than some other premium point and shoots I've used, but boy, I was wrong. Right out of the gate, I was blown away with the amount of detail that you can get out of the sensor and lens, and I really think it's mostly the lens. First off, the lens is super sharp, wide open at f2.8, which means you don't really have to think about peak sharpness at what aperture. You can just focus on aperture for your depth of field control and whatever else you're thinking about, and you're gonna get sharpness all across the range. There's basically nothing different quality-wise between this camera and an enthusiast level DSLR with a premium lens on the front, except that this camera is way smaller and costs way less. And I think it's hard for photographers and non-photographers to take this camera seriously because it's so small and cute, but I think the results speak for themselves. GRs might be known more for street photography, but I use mine mainly for family documenting and as a hiking landscape camera. The 28mm equivalent lens makes it a powerful landscape setup that fits in your pocket. And if 28mm isn't wide enough for your landscape needs, there's even this 21mm lens attachment that you can buy that works really nicely. It just looks just as sharp as when you just use the lens by itself. And look at that setup right there. You can add all your normal landscape filters to the front of this lens or to the main lens itself by just using this attachment. And I use that for ND filters, circular polarizing filters, so you can get some really dynamic and cool looking landscapes with that. And I would challenge anyone to tell that these images were taken on a pocket camera. And that's what makes this so cool as a little hiking landscape setup. I even bought this small mechanical star tracking mount that requires no batteries and does a great job matching the rotation of the Earth for wide landscape type shots of the Milky Way, for example. Throwing my GR on there has worked really nicely, and this lens is incredible even at night. From my perspective, the only things that would make this an even better hiking landscape travel camera would be weather sealing, would be super nice, and also a tilt screen on the back. And I think street photographers and other types of photographers would enjoy those features as well. So who knows, Ricoh? That would be cool. There's no EVF option for this camera, but I knew that going into the camera, and I'm really not bothered by it because I just use this camera differently than I do my other cameras. But if you have to have a viewfinder, you can buy an optical viewfinder, and depending on your budget, you have a couple of options, all the way from super cheap to super nice, but expensive. There's a $10 cheap plastic option that you can buy on eBay, just generic viewfinders, 28mm equivalent viewfinders. Those are okay, they give you something to look through, but the quality is not there. I used to have one. A step up from that would be the TT Artisan viewfinder they released a couple years ago. This one is actually pretty nice, but still on a budget. It's metal, has actual glass elements, so much better quality than the cheap plastic one. And then if you have the cash and you're willing to fork it over for the very best, Ricoh's official GV1 adapter, which I have here, is beautiful to look through. It's super bright, the frame lines are super clear. It is huge, you can't really pocket the camera anymore. Well, you can, you just need a bigger pocket. but it is really nice. It's just expensive. And then once again, it's just an OVF, so there's no EVF indicators in it. No focus indicators, no exposure indicators. You're just being able to frame your image. And then beyond the wide angle lens, there's a lesser known and lesser talked about macro lens adapter, which is kind of hard to find on the cheap, but because also not many people are looking for it, if you wait around long enough like I did, you will find them on the cheap. And I picked this up just to play with because I love the macro feature, just the normal lens setup. It's not even close to a true one-to-one macro or anything, but it's amazing how close you can get, and I've gotten some really sweet shots with it. It's also just so small that you might as well throw it in your bag, and if you see anything you want to do close-up work with, you have it right there. Really, my only big gripe with the camera is the battery life. It burns through batteries, so I have to have several batteries in my backpack, even for day trips. So I guess that's what you get when you get a small camera with a huge sensor in it. It's gonna burn through batteries, but yeah, I wish that was better. Okay, but why this 2013 version over the newer GR3 2019 or whenever that came out? Well, there's a few reasons. Mostly because it's cheaper, and I feel like the newer one doesn't really give any major advantages. But there's also some other reasons, like this 2013 version has a built-in flash, and the newer one doesn't. The flash really does come in handy. The lens attachments are also cheaper on the older version because less people are going for it. It used to be that you could get these 2013 GRs for pretty cheap, but now the price has gone up a little bit. I think more people are just getting into the Ricoh GR system and looking for a cheaper alternative to the GR3, but I still think it's worth the price. So pocketable, amazing lens, super versatile, and then fantastic for hiking, landscape, astro, macro, and juggling children, which is the most important for me. All the reasons why this is my island camera. Thanks for watching. As always, go out there and shoot with whatever camera you have, whatever gear you have right now. Take amazing pictures, have fun with it. And until next time, happy snapping.